I'm Michael Steinmacher, Director of the Barr Memorial Library at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Today I'm talking with Steve Berry. Steve is the #1 internationally best-selling and New York Times best-selling author of 21 novels, including his latest, The Omega Factor. His books have 41 language or published in 41 languages with over 25 million books in print now in 52 different countries. Interesting statistic. Somewhere in the world, every 30 seconds, someone's buying one of his books. As I mentioned, his newest novel is The Omega Factor. Well, first of all, thanks for taking time to talk with us, Steve.
Great to see you again, Mike.
So could you tell us a little bit about The Omega Factor?
Well, it's not a Cotton Malone book. Cotton Malone, I've done 16 novels with. Cotton decided to take the summer off. He's going to travel and enjoy himself for the summer. And I created a new character, this guy named Nicholas Lee, who works for UNESCO. He works for a division of UNESCO called the Cultural Liaison and Investigative Office, CLIO, which is the Muse of History. And he goes around the world and he protects and saves cultural treasures. So it's very similar to Cotton in that it's action, history, secrets, conspiracies, and international settings. But it's different from Cotton because Nick is a different character with different motivations, different thought processes, different goals, all kinds of different fears and loves and all kinds of things, which was fun to create a new guy. He's been in my head about 10 years. And so finally, I got to bring him to life here in The Omega Factor.
So, as you mentioned, history underpins all of your work. And this time, the Ghent altarpiece features prominently in this work. Can you tell us what the Ghent altarpiece is and why it is so pivotal to this work?
Well, it was created in the mid 15th century, and it wasn't the first oil painting ever done, but it was one of the first to maximize what you can do with oil. And oil allows you to get depth and detail and all kinds of things you can't get with watercolors. So the Ghent altarpiece is loaded with all kinds of small miniature words and phrases and symbols and all kinds of interesting things that are on it. It sits in a cathedral in Ghent, Belgium. I saw it about 6 years ago, and it just drew me. I said, this would make a great novel. I've just got to excuse me, figure out what to do. How do I make this work? How do I put it together? The Ghent altarpiece is what the Monuments Men are after in the movie, The Monuments Men. That's what they go after because Hitler stole it in 1939 and they found it in 1945. One of the panels was stolen in 1934 and never seen again, and that figures into the novel. The altarpiece itself is the most stolen, vandalized, and attacked work of art in history. 13 times this thing has been attacked. Why? What is it about this that draws all this attention? The novel will explore that.
So you actually anticipated my next question. You mentioned that you saw the piece 6 years ago and it's reached fruition in a novel now. I'm sure you come across ideas or bits of plot pieces that might not crystallize for immediate use, but how do you go about cataloging and keeping track of ideas for future use?
A highly sophisticated system of write it on a piece of paper and throw it in a file. That's really where it is. I have an idea file, and I come across things, I just toss it in the file. Sometimes I'll write a little note so I'll remember what it is, but I just throw everything in there. And it may not work then, but it might work years from now. And that's what happened here. I wanted the altarpiece to be a Cotton Malone adventure. Tried so hard, couldn't make it work, but it worked well here. I was able to finally come up with the treasure hunt. I have to work with what's there. I can't add anything. I don't want to take anything away. I want to use exactly what's there. And I was able to do that. So my idea file's probably about that thick. It's really thick. Most of those ideas will never see the light of day, but every once in a while I go in there and I find one. I went, yeah, I think I can make that work now.
I mean, you are very deliberate about making sure that you respect history. That's one of the things that I think you are known for and respected for. Can you talk a little bit about how historical pieces, facts, that sort of thing come into play and how you work them into your narratives?
Well, that's when I do the research. When I'm writing a novel, I use about 400 sources, and they're books. And I don't read 400 books, but I do read large chunks of 400 books. And I go through them and I make notes. And the notes are usually about so tall, 6 inches or more tall. I'm only going to use a small portion of that research, maybe 10, 15% of it. The trick is to know what to use and what not to use. And I'm not saying I'm great at it, but I am conscious at mixing information with action. That's the hardest challenge in my genre, is mixing those two together. Readers of my books want action, they want the adventure, but they also want the information. They don't want too much of one and too little of another. So I'm trying to mix those together as best I can. It's a constant battle sometimes to make that happen. Luckily, my wife Elizabeth is the first reader of the book, and she's a trained editor herself, and so she's got a good eye, and she can tell me, well, you went a little too much there, or no, you didn't give me enough here. So I'm able to use her eye to polish it up before anybody sees it.
Do you feel like you do a lot of revising to your drafts?
Oh, yeah. Writing is rewriting. I go through the book about 50, 60 times. Yeah, I do. I go through it so much, I don't ever want to read it again as long as I live. Because I've read it 50, 60 times. I just don't want to read it anymore. So yeah, writing is rewriting over and over and over.
And do you ever worry that that process will become wearing? Like, for instance, you mentioned this is a new character. Does the rewriting and the writing, the rewriting, the writing, rewriting, does that ever turn you off on a character or the idea behind that?
It would turn me off to the story some, because when I get to the end and I know I've got to do like 1 or 2 more rereads, it really is painful, because these are very intense reads too, by the way. You've got to really read the book very, very, very carefully. So, and by that time I've read it so much, it takes all I've got to force myself through it. I try to do about 50, 60 pages a day. So it takes me about a week or more to go through the manuscript. If I do more than 50 or 60 a day, I'll get sloppy, and I can't get sloppy at that point. And my attention span at that point can go about 50, 60 a day. But when you read the book so much, it just comes to a point where I don't want to read it again. But unfortunately you do. I have to keep going.
I'm curious, by the time you get down to that last read or two, what are you looking for at that point?
Making sure everything makes sense, number one, making sure the continuity is there, that the motivations are right, everything makes sense, everything is consistent. The character is not doing something completely out of character that I've set up, making sure that all that consistency is there. That's what I look for a lot. And at that point, then just maybe a light little polish or buffing up edit is all you're doing at that point. But you're mainly making sure that everything makes sense.
Did you find it easier with Nick Lee without the established backstory that Cotton has to do that for this book, or was there a difference?
No difference. I created Nick's world, and so everything had to be consistent within Nick's world. With Cotton, I have a double problem. It has to be consistent in that world for that book and consistent with all the other books. So it's actually a little harder with Cotton, because I got to make sure I don't do something that's contradictory to what I've done previously with him. And that's hard because I didn't keep a bio of him. I should have written down all of these little things, but I don't. I have to go just from my brain and remember them. Luckily, Elizabeth remembers pretty well too, so we are able to make sure. I try to keep it vague on the references so I don't get tripped up. With Nick, it was actually a little bit easier because it was brand new, and so I can modify it however I wanted.
So you're 16 books into your Cotton Malone series. Knowing you've probably got the next one about finished, or at least long toward it. Do you worry about running out of stories for him?
Well, it's always a worry to have it. The next Cotton Malone book was actually done before I wrote Nick Lee. When I switched to publishers, they wanted to start with a standalone, and I'd already finished the Cotton Malone book. So they said, no, we'll do that in 23, but we want to do something new in 22. So the 23 book's done. It will come out February 21 of next year, and it's called The Last Kingdom. Deals with Ludwig II, his 3 fairy tale castles, and a really fun adventure through Bavaria.
Oh, that sounds
going to be a lot of fun with that. And I'm writing the book right now that will be published in 24, which will be the next Cotton Malone adventure. As far as ideas go, I'm okay to 24, 25. After that, I don't know, but they'll come. They tend to come if I'm just patient. And if I get myself in the right spot, they'll jump and find me. You can't go find the idea. It won't let you find. They're very elusive if you go looking for them. But they will allow you to find them if you happen to put yourself in the right spot. And that usually comes for me through traveling. And we're going to start traveling back later this year. So we're going to get going again back out in the world. So I'm sure that there'll be more ideas coming along.
I was going to say, I imagine COVID has frustrated the idea generation for you.
Well, luckily I was ahead of myself, which was good. I had 22, 23, 24, and probably 25. So I was okay. And I'd already been to trips on those. I'd already done the research and all those. So actually, COVID, it did not hurt me. It actually helped me because I was home for 2 years and could get ahead of myself. Didn't have to travel, didn't have to go anywhere. But now we're going to get back on the road again and get going again, and we'll get back into the old schedule. Though I suspect it won't be quite as hectic as it used to be. It'll probably be a little less, which is just fine with me.
What keeps you interested in storytelling?
New things, new and interesting things, like the Ghent altarpiece that I knew nothing about. I want to learn about these things, fascinating things that go like, wow. I mean, I've heard people talk about this, I've seen it, but I just didn't really understand it. Now I've spent a year and a half studying it, I understand it. So finding things that are interesting, finding things that are new and different, that keeps me going. It does keep it from being boring, yes.
So I want to go back to that statistic I mentioned at the beginning, the idea that one of your books is purchased every 30 seconds by somebody. I imagine that is a mind-blowing statistic for you.
It was what I actually did that. We actually did that statistic because of Lee Child. Lee did it with his books. He sells a book about every 10 seconds. So he does a lot more than I do. And so I did the math too, and came up with 30 seconds, which I thought was, wow, it's amazing. Every 30 seconds somewhere in the world for the last 19 years, someone's bought a book of mine. That's humbling. And it's also encouraging because that means that we get to keep doing it again. It's just amazing to me, considering it took me 12 years to get published, and I went through 85 rejections, and then now here we are. So it was interesting to see that. I would love to get that statistic down to 20 seconds or there. I would love to get it down there, but that's going to mean selling a lot more books. And but 30 seconds is still pretty good. I'll take it.
Do I'm thinking about, I've been a reader of yours very early on, going back as far as the Amber Room. Do you think that your success has allowed you to take risks or do things that you might not have otherwise imagined possible in terms of your work?
I wish I could. Unfortunately, no. Unfortunately, what happens is when you get success, the readers want you to keep doing what you're doing, and they want you to keep producing what you're doing. I would love to branch out and write some other stuff. I have a suspense novel that I finished years ago that I'd love to publish that I think would be a great story. A sci-fi novel that I wrote about 15,000 words on, and I've not been able to get back to it. I would love to branch out and do some of that, but unfortunately, all of that would have to be done in addition to Cotton and all the other stuff, not in lieu of, and that's the problem. So success can pigeonhole you into where you are, but I'm a commercial fiction writer. I write books for a living, and so I have to do what I have to do to make that living. But maybe one day I'll be able to try some of these other things.
Well, Steve, I want to thank you for taking time to talk with us today. As always, you are welcome at Fort Knox. And now that things are getting back to a little bit normal, hopefully we will see you on site in the not so distant future.
You may very well. I've been there like, what, 4 times? I think I've been there. Three times.
So you're already planning the 4th one. So
yeah,
we'll work it out.
I always enjoy the visit.
Absolutely. So thanks again and best wishes.
Thank you, Mike.